And, having an extra man doesn't guarantee anything, as we'll learn when we talk about what happened in Toulouse later on. Fatboy_Rob said, entertaining match to start the season. Wire looked good with 13 men, but Wigan just about deserved the win. French played okay at fullback, but Zach is wasted in the centres. I thought Hastings was quiet. I thought Kendall and Thaler got all 3 big decisions right. Didn't see anything to worry Cass about playing the Pies next week. I predict Cass by 20 with a lot of empty spaces in the stands. #Hill is still a shithouse.
Okey-doke, there's one view. Another view, Stuart Wood, Burrell is still useless.
I think he went off for a concussion assessment, so I'd raise that as mitigation against his kind of... I would
ineffectuality.
Say he was on the pitch but didn't really get involved. Yeah. Shoddy and Mungo said, other than the Burgess charge down call, which might be technically right, but I haven't seen it interpreted like that ever before, I thought Kendall got the big calls right and kept the lid on a fiery match. Yeah, that was weird. That was a knock-on, weren't it? Let's face it.
Yeah.
Even though it was a kick that came directly to him, that's an error rather than a charge down. I agree.
Wakey White said, really bruising encounter on both sides with no shortage of skill on show either. Thought Wire were a bit one-dimensional, trying to hammer it down the left in the first half, but seemed more dangerous and unpredictable. Went down to 12. Matty Ashton looked great on debut, and young French sending the whole Wire defence for a hot dog was delightful too. Great start to 2020.
Tom Eckley says, very strong debut from Ashton and much smoother performance than expected given the lack of pre-season fixtures. Promising base to build on. Hastings/French combinations look terrifying already.
Yeah, didn't it?
French is just exciting.
He is.
So is Matty Ashton. Both players, so exciting. And it's what we want to pay to go and see. 2 players who get us on the edge of our seats. I'll jump ahead a slight bit. These are my 2 star players from this match because they just jumped off the pitch as being electrifying. So yeah, I agree with all the people who are flagging those 2 players. Yeah.
And if he can stay fit, Bevan French is the sort of player who, when you need something most, will do something utterly ridiculous that somehow comes off.
And he's only
just got that magic.
His anaerobic capacity when he's more used to playing fullback and being more involved in the game all along. Right, okay. Genghis
Campbell said, Warrington were very good in keeping the score to 16-10 after Chris Hill was removed from the game for an attempted decapitation. Burgess appears to be a larger gentleman with a dodgy hip. I've been described as that on many occasions. Fortunately, he got pulled after being trampled by Ben Murdoch-Masilla. Bevan French scored a lovely solo try and set Marshall up for the winner. Deservedly man of the match, pretty good start to the season.
Neil McEwen said, first game of the season, and to be honest, it was shit. Wigan lucky to win against 12 men for 3/4 of the game. Hill acting shocked he got a red card was brilliant. After that, he's surely a BAFTA nominated after he hid in the middle of the Wire squad whilst Powell was treated. Blake Austin crying to the ref every 5 minutes was annoying. Wigan looked toothless. Luluai and O'Loughlin looked old, and they had no more, and they looked no more than bench players.
So that's one view.
Strong words there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought O'Loughlin looked okay, but he was playing in the halves for a bit, and I didn't like that.
Well, yeah, but what else was he going to do? He was going to step up. Anyway, at Mike Dodd 22 says, despite the loss, I've come out of that encouraged. Price will have a headache when Widdop is back fit because Matty Ashton has had 2 superb games so far, but where do you fit him in? Why don't we hear about Wigan's shrewd signing of Chris Kendall in any of the season previews? #refs fault 2020. Quick aside, can we set up an SLP forum to suggest the best parking places at grounds?
I would say we don't have the website capabilities of a SLP forum at the moment. However, I'll think of something that we can do through the show, Mike, because that's a cool idea, and anything to encourage people to get to more games is all we want to hear. Always in our shadow said, Burgess embarrassing himself, Hill still a grub, Wigan failed to capitalise on numeric advantage, must be worrying. It would be worrying if it was 2 months into the season, but I'm not too worried in week 1, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Who is next?
White Pie.
White Pie says, well, that's Carl Fitzpatrick's tipping career fucked. A mistake-filled opening game for both sides, full of heroes and villains. Hill will get a rest for attempting to remove Powell's head. 3 games, in fact.
Yes, 3-game ban is had. Once we've done this review, then maybe we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and Blake Austin needs to quit his whining. It's like the ghost of Lee Breers rides again. Oh, and a dummy that means Cooper still hasn't found Bevan. A good 2 points and hopefully a better attacking performance versus the Tigers.
Yeah, so the Hill sending off. Where do you stand on this one? Right call or harsh?
Right call. I think I've seen them given as yellow, but I think given the fact it was higher and to the head and clearly just ridiculous, yeah, red for me.
And
quite
then in
clearly.
terms of the 3-game ban? Because effectively it's 3.5 games, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, it's possibly on the harsher side, but then you leave yourself open to it.
I think the way the sentencing works, that if a player is concussed as a result of the direct forcible attack to the head, and if a player is concussed as a result, the match review panel would use that as an aggravating factor. Now, I feel that if we want to make the game safer, we should be using the potential outcome rather than the actual outcome as the aggravating factor. However, that is how they work. So under that framework, I think 3 games makes sense. I would have thought 2 would have been maybe more on the nose because it was desperation. It wasn't malice. He is a grubby player, but there's grubby players all over Super League. It wasn't malice. It was trying desperately to stop a try when he's too tired to actually get there properly. But it was direct forcible contact of a swinging arm to a player's head, and so all around, I think that decision was got right. But what I would say, what decision was got wrong, is why on earth didn't Steve Price pull him off after he clearly... Like, Mike Cooper jumped the line, but he jumped the line because he thought he could trust Chris Hill inside him. And Chris Hill was gassed, and that was on, 18 minutes? So, and Wigan hadn't even had the ball at that stage. Wigan scored 3 tries on the first 2 attacks because Warrington had all the ball and looked, physically more impressive until that point. So, yeah.
Right, Paul Michael Craig says, the funder from Down Under himself, bit of a scratchy game. Bevan French the difference. Feels like Steve Price spent the off-season with the Walker brothers who coached the Ipswich Jets. All the short dropouts, taking taps instead of kicks from penalties. Anyway, how good is it to have the footy back? That's a really good point that I hadn't thought of. That
I love short dropouts, even though they were done more through the chasing the game and what's the harm it can do. I do love those things, don't you?
But I don't know if we've watched any of the Ipswich from the last 3 or 4 years side, but they do play very... It's all about how long can they keep the ball in play and tire out the opposition as a result. It's a very different philosophy of playing, and it does work for them. And it's just quite an interesting way of attacking the problem.
Yeah, Champ and a Half Tom said, solid start to the season with a game that had it all. Everyone with a collective cheer when Chris Hill finally got sent off after all his shithousery over the years. Impressed with French, had some prime Rangy Chase vibes going.
Jen K says, thank God Super League is back. Great start by Wigan. Clearly a long way from being polished, but a good display. Warrington looking sharp too, and their offload game will undo a few teams. With French and Hastings, we seem to have got rid of that cluelessness in attack. Massively over-celebrated that Bevan French try out. Sheer surprise at our skill. Looking forward to a great season ahead of the game.
Phil's fit sister said, our Phil reckons I should just say the opposite of what my stalker would say, but here goes. Wigan did enough to win this, but it was a typical early season encounter with both sets of players showing some ring rust. Step forward, Mr. Hill. Both sides will improve, and I expect them to be top of the table contenders, unlike Cass. Wigan have the better looking players, and I like their shorts were just a touch tighter.
There we go. All
Thanks,
views
Joe.
are welcome.
Yeah. Definitely
POB,
Joe's own words.
Yeah. POB 1976 said, a great start to the Super League season with tough opening encounter. Thought the officials got the Hill sending off and penalty try correct.
Well, we bow down to Paul O'Brien's assessment, as he is a former referee. Dr. Bob Phillips said, well, I thought for a few moments, 10 minutes out, that Wigan would go all Cass in a playoff and choke. Sadly, they hung on to an inspiring 8-point scrape over, I think it's 6-point, wasn't it? Scrape over a team playing under strength for 75 minutes. Hopeful this is the best they can manage. It was 56 minutes, but yeah.
And it was 6 points because I got it right.
Yeah,
I actually called my first ever game correctly. Anyway, EFC78JU says, it was a good game back on the opening night, but not the result all away fans are after. It's still got the first try of the 2020 season with Big Ben, and the rest of them were kicks from Stephen Ratchford. Chris Hill did not have to go in like that, but yes, he did, and got sent off, and Wigan still won by 16 points to 10. Get well soon, Sam Powell. 2 or 3 match ban for our team captain.
Well, spot on there, EFC. So good spot. Shall we talk a little bit about Ben Murdoch-Massilla's try, and more, I suppose, about what on earth George Burgess and his creaking hips were doing on that in that moment?
Yeah, well, not a lot is the answer, isn't it? I mean, it was like watching a footage of me when I first came back from tearing my Achilles. He was going at that sort of speed.
At Joe New 86 said, Joe, another new name.
Get in touch.
Welcome on board. Great game to kick off the new season. Dubious red card for me, though. I think a sin bin would have been a fair call. If Powell hadn't been knocked out, then would it still have been a red? Maybe I'm just biased because I backed Wyatt on my prediction.
I think it would have still been a red, to be honest. I think they wouldn't have had much choice, but
it was direct, forcible contact to the head. I think it's the kind of key underpinning there. So yeah, there was no mitigation at all either, was there? There was no suggestion it didn't make direct contact. You know, it wasn't a lazy arm, it was a swinging arm. He did have to make some sort of attempt to stop him scoring, but he didn't have to go high. He could have attacked the ball. There was other options, yeah.
At Aidan Stalker, welcome back, says, new season, same old Chris Hill. At least Bevan French provided some entertainment. Those young big lumps for Wigan were pretty good.
Paul Chamberlain says, fair play to Gale. As far as hair transplants go, that one is pretty good. Burgess is already looking a fat, unfit waster. So, given the current environment of rapprochement, it's nice of Hill to even up the numbers and make a game of it. Despite the loss, Wire impressed more. It was good to see Smithies has used the off-season to perfect his grubbery with that face gouge. The true heir to Lockers he is.
And finally, we have reached the end of the fan views with Mark W., who says, in a week where Cat Lang questioned the inclusivity of the sport, Wigan fired back by showing that anyone, even the laughably unfit, can get a marquee contract. There's hope for me yet. Wigan looked uninspiring against 11 men, and whilst many are crediting Wire for holding their nerve, you have to remember the players don't leave the field by accident. It was due to appalling discipline. Both sides need some work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've talked about my star players,
that.
So I'll just talk about my highlight moments like we would normally do on most games, and then we'll move on to the next game. I'm biased, but I'm going to go with the French try. For everyone else who doesn't support Wigan, though, I'm sure the sight of Ben Murdoch-Masilla landing George Burgess on his arse was the brighter moment for them. But I think Bevan French... No one's talked about the pickup. The pickup was fantastic in the first place, let alone the dummy and the ability to get through the gap. Anyway, the Joe Burgess leap as well, I think, the leap, the take and the break, that had the makings of a great moment, but well done to Tom Lynam for coming across and stopping Burgess scoring in the first place, and shame on Liam Marshall for making sure Wigan didn't capitalise on what should have been a sure try if he'd have just thrown a pass. But there you go. That's that game. Very, very longly covered. But thanks for all the fan views. That's how we should do it.
Yeah.
Next one, you can go. You can start.
Right, so on Friday night, it finished Hull Kingston Rovers 30, Wakefield 12, having been 10-6 at half-time, in front of 8,492 people, refereed by Mr. Robert Hicks. In terms of statistics, there were 4 more tries and 5 more breaks, and the only numbers that support a home win in this one. The losing away side made more metres at over 1 metre per carry, better average game, fewer errors, fewer penalties conceded, better tackle success rate, and the numbers don't explain this very one-sided score outcome.
Yeah, how did you win?
you messaged me this on Saturday, and how did that happen? And my only justification is this what happens when you free Ryan Brealey. He's the shackles are off and off we go. He is the X factor you can't measure with conventional statistics. Ben Crooks, 4 tries, 3 clean breaks. Greg Minikin, 1 try and 112 metres. Sean Kenny Dow, 2 dads, 10 tackle busts, 106 metres, and Mitch